All right. Hey guys, this is a little bit about our midterm rental pricing strategy. Pricing strategies for midterm rentals, uh, it has some similarities to short-term rentals, and that's really, that's where I got started with short-term rentals and understanding dynamic pricing. There's tools out there like Price Labs, but you still have to understand what you're trying to do with those tools, and not just set it and forget it. So some of these principles, actually a lot of these principles for our midterm rental pricing comes from short-term rental pricing principles. I'll share some real examples and kind of the thought process behind what these specific settings are trying to accomplish. So, some context. I'm coming from the scenario where you can only do a midterm rental, right? You have to do 30-day or 31-day minimum bookings. We're in SoCal, the LA area, so that's because of regulations. If you're in an area that could do midterm and short term, a lot of these principles are different and matter less because you could fill your gaps between your midterm stays with short term stays, and you don't have to worry about that so much. But when you have to do a 30-day minimum, one of the challenges with pricing and calendar management is those awkward gaps between bookings, right? So here's an example. This is a very small gap, but this for this property for this unit, there's this 4-day gap, and obviously you lose any kind of revenue for those 4-day gaps. If you kind of imagine if this booking checks out on the 5th, and let's say our next booking checked in on 26th over here, then that's a 3-week gap. That's a lot of lost revenue there. So our pricing strategy is designed to basically deal with that challenge. So I know there's a lot of different other approaches, other operators, midterm rental operators have used, and I've heard about. They all have the pros and cons, in my opinion. And our approach, we do it because we think it's the best balance of the costs and the benefits and costs, and I'll explain more about that. So essentially, the starting principle here is when you have a calendar. So this is an actual live calendar for this property called Emerald 35. There's a current booking, that's this red one, and it checks out January 9th. Today is, I'm recording, is right here, December 14th. So, whoops, open something. Yeah, so with this calendar, essentially every potential booking and the date range of that booking has a different value, partly because it changes the value of the dates around it. So I'll give you an example. If someone were to book 1 month starting on, so for our intermentals, we always allow 1-day gaps just to get things ready. So our soonest booking we could get for this one, we'll check in on the 10th. So if we get a 30-day booking, or someone wants to book a 30-day booking starting January 10th to February 10th, that is ideal for us because we're minimizing our gap between the current booking and that one. So there's no lost revenue from a gap there. So we could price it, what I call our base rate for this property. But if someone comes in and books all of February, right, 1 month, the whole month of February, I know that's less than 30 days, but just we'll use the monthly 1 month as a unit here. So someone books the whole month of February. I don't want them to book at the base rate because by booking February, we lose, what is that, about 3 weeks here, right, in January that we cannot get booked, right, because we have a 30-day minimum in this locality. So so what I'm getting at is that booking or that booking request for all of February, it has a certain, so when we're trying to determine how to price that, that booking request changes the value of these dates here, in a sense, right? Well, essentially, it makes the value of the 10th to 31st zero, because now we're going to get $0 a day for these dates. So one of the principles of our pricing strategy is that let's say I'm just using a simple number here, but let's say the value that we attribute to these dates, the 3 weeks here, let's say it's $2,000. So if someone were to book all of February and create that vacant gap that we can't get booked, we will lose that $2,000 there, but we would essentially increase the rent for the month of February by $2,000, right? Does that make sense, to compensate for that loss? Now that might sound crazy to you. Let's say that this property was $3,000 and it almost doubles, right? So you might think yourself, that's crazy. Who would book February at almost double the rate if you set your pricing that way? That's a very good point. And the intent of this pricing strategy is not necessarily that we'll get a booking for February. It's that if we do get this February booking and create this large gap, then the price that we set the month of February for is worth it, right? I'm okay if no one books February for that inflated amount, right? But if someone wanted to, let's say they like this property, they saw it on Airbnb and they liked it that much, and they wanted to book it, I want to give them the option to book it at that rate without us losing money. So that's one of the principles there. That's really the driving principle behind this pricing strategy. If let's see what else on that point. If someone were to come in and want to book, let's say, so here's one of the what I would say negatives of this pricing strategy, right? So if this month, February, the pricing is inflated for February. If someone came in and they wanted to check in on January 10th, right, like we talked about, but they wanted to stay till, March 10th, 2 months, right? So in Airbnb or whatever platform, if they look at those 2 months, those 60 days, then the rate will look a lot higher, right? Because we priced February higher and February is included in those 60 days, that date range, then the price will look very high for the person trying to book the 2 months. And we're okay with that 2 month booking because it's checking in on the 10th, so we have no gap there. But the pricing, it might seem overpriced, right? So that I would say is kind of a negative in the sense that it might drive away potential bookings. There's different things you could do about that. So what we've done is we've set a discount for 60-day or longer bookings. So that way it offsets some of that, premium that we set for the month of February in this example. But we, for Mitchell Rentals specifically, we regularly get people who want 2 or 3 month bookings and they see our listing, they like it, they'll reach out and ask, do you have any discounts available? I like your place, here's our budget. Or, do you have discounts available for a longer stay? So because our calendar is open and people who want those 60 days or longer, they'll see our listing in their search results and it gives them the option to reach out and ask for a discount. And like all, sales, people like the feeling of a discount. So if you go in and say, hey, yeah, I'll give discount. I'll lower it to, let's say $3,000 a month, $6,000 for those two months. They'll feel great about that because they're getting something cheaper than they originally saw. Yeah. So that's kind of how we counteract the negative of it. But again, another one of the driving principles and goals of our pricing strategy is we prioritize and we want to our listings to show up as often as possible in people's search results. So I'll give you another example of that there, of how that works. Some people in managing their calendars for Mitchell Rentals, they might just, their strategy to avoid those gaps is they might only open their calendars from the 10th here from January 10th to February 10th. So literally, unless you people can only book those specific dates. And then let's say someone wants to book from the 12th to the 12th, it wouldn't show up because from the 11th and on, February 11th and on here, it's blocked. That's one way people, they kind of force a booking that starts right after the current booking ends. The negative of that is you get way less eyes on the property, right? So again, like I mentioned earlier, I want the option for someone to see our listing for these other date ranges, even though the pricing is a lot higher, so that they see it and they can possibly, they might book it at a higher rate. We've had that. We've had Give an example. We have a property that we price usually between 7 to 9,000 a month, and because of this pricing strategy, someone booked a date range that was not optimal for our calendar, but they ended up paying 12,000 a month to make up for that gap, and I was happy with that, and they liked the property enough to pay that much for it. Yeah, so by leaving the calendar open, you have the option of getting these sales, getting these leads to reach out to you simply because they are seeing your listing in the search results. I don't know if this is true or not, but there may also be some SEO benefit where your calendar is more available. So Airbnb's SEO, ranks higher. I'm not sure, but I do know whenever I check our properties, most of our properties are in the first like 3 search results. So something's working. Yeah, so those are the principles there. I haven't shared anything about specifically how we do this. I'm going to give you a little bit idea of how specifically we do this. Essentially, like most pricing tools, you're setting daily rates. So the way we set our prices, we set our daily rates in a way so the date ranges, date ranges for any potential booking totals up to the price that we want to be, right? So there's some math and some experimenting here to figure it out. Essentially, I made a spreadsheet and some formulas that work for what I want to do. That's something you could create based on the numbers you want. But in this example, in order to get the result that I want, I basically set the daily rate for the first 3 weeks, first 3 vacant weeks. So from the 10th year down to the 30th, that's 3 weeks. We set it at an $80 daily rate, and then from the next 4 weeks after that, so it's from the 31st of January, and that goes to, I believe, here 27th of February. So that's the next 4 weeks. We set it at a higher rate of 200 daily rate. 150 is our default for this property, so you can see everything else below is 150. But those first 7 vacant weeks, by setting it at these specific numbers, the pricing works out to the way the end result that we want, that we're okay with. So that's something you got to figure out for your property, and what your base rate that you want to get is, and what's that minimum, what's the maximum, all that kind of stuff. But that's how we do it. The last thing I want to show is, so this is for a property that's currently booked. So if we look at a property, I'm trying to think of an example. Here's one. So, not this one. We will go to this one. So if you look at a property that's currently vacant, that doesn't have a current booking, similar principle here of the 3 and 4 weeks. Essentially, today is the 14th, so I'm gonna start on the 15th. You know what? This is another example. That's not gonna work. Sorry, give me a sec. Some every property has some exceptions, right? Here we go. So when you have a vacant property, starting from the day, what we do at least, the next vacant 3 weeks. So from December 15th, I'm gonna highlight it so it's easy to see, to here, right here. I updated yesterday. So these are the next 3 weeks vacant. We will set it at that lower rate, right? In this case, it's 150. I'll just do it right now, actually. And then the next 4 weeks, which goes 1, 2, 3, 4, we set it at the higher rate. So this is a very manual process. I would love to have automation for this, but essentially when you have a vacant property, every day you have to go in and update it, right? Because you're essentially pushing back that three and 4 week period. So what this does is, if someone were to make a booking right now and check in tomorrow, they get the best rate, because we want to incentivize someone to move in sooner than later. And again, similar to the previous example, if someone were to, again, today is the 14th, if someone were to check in, let's say, after Christmas on the 28th, that's 2 weeks from today. So the end result, the monthly rate they're going to get will be a little bit higher, because by booking on the 28th, we lose those 2 weeks, right? So again, it's just thinking about, for every specific date range someone wants to book, what is the optimal rate that you charge for that range. And then this part of it is just, specifics of how you make that happen. This is our property management system, Hostfully. Most systems should have something similar where you could go in and set the individual daily rates. I hope that's helpful. My personal recommendation for all Mitrumento owners and operators is not to just copy what I'm doing, but to understand these principles, to understand that when you get a booking, I'll go back to this one, when you get a booking for any date range, it has an effect on the value of the dates before and even after, I would say, the dates around that booking. What you don't want to do is say, let's say this property is 3,000 a month. You don't want to just go in and set every month, every day for 3,000. In this case, let's say $100 a day, right? That makes about 3,000 a month. You don't want to just go in and make a whole calendar $100 a day, right? Because then someone's going to come in and go, ooh, February for 3,000 a month sounds good to me, and they book that month. I'm looking at the wrong example. Sorry. So someone comes in, books February for 3,000 a month because that's the market rate for Mitrumento, and then you lose these 3 weeks that you will not get booked, right? Side point here, if that happens, if someone were to book all of February and you have 3 weeks vacant here, you could always go to the booking you currently have here and offer them an extension. Like, if you need to extend your stay, I'll give you a discount, basically because you have 3 weeks vacant that are not going to make any money anyways. Let me know if this is helpful. Leave some comments or any questions you have. I'd love to answer any questions you have about this. I know it's kind of complex, and I see this as a very common question I see in the mid-to-rental space where people are trying to manage their calendars and vacancies. Thank you.